Hearing about it from the American Cancer Society, the largest cancer group in the nation. When I went on their website, I was shocked to see that none of this information was featured on their homepage.
I'm going to be honest here now. I agree with this guy that our big organizations actually are completely misinformed when it comes to nutrition. That's just a fact. They just parrot whatever the FDA is saying or whatever the food industry is saying, and they have big donors from these things. So this is one thing that Hippie McGee here and I share in common.
We are in the business of treating sick people. We are not in the business of trying to prevent people from becoming sick.
I agree with that guy. Here's the problem when you're talking about preventing disease, there's no one size fits all. So if you say meat is bad, that's not necessarily true for everybody genetically.
I go into the hospital and I look around me, people on dialysis, all these sick people, and just about every disease in there is because of what people are eating.
Here's the thing. If I eat a sugary cookie, the sugar lures you in like the Trojan horse, but waiting inside that cookie is a huge load of butter or shortening, and that's what fattens you up, and that's the part that leads to the diabetes. It's the fatty foods, not really so much the sugar.
It's not that sugar.
This is an eternal conflict between the low carb and the high carb gurus, right? And the honest truth is they're both right. And both of them exclude the other people's arguments. And that's the problem with nutrition in general. That's the problem. The documentary maker says, oh, we don't even talk about nutrition. You know why they don't want to talk about nutrition? Because they know everybody stakes out a claim and then fights to the death for it. But the truth is, yes, and all these people have a point.
I realized there was so much more about diet and disease that I hadn't ever learned. It felt as if this information had been practically withheld. Processed meat causes cancer. Sugar doesn't cause diabetes.
Okay, processed meat causes cancer. It is associated as a carcinogen, yes, so eating it over a long period of time could increase your risk of cancer. Sugar doesn't cause diabetes is a simple, blatant mistruth. And if this documentary is purporting that, people will die as a result because they are learning incorrect information physiologically and epidemiologically.
Looked at 9 prospective studies finding that just one serving of processed meat per day increased risk of developing diabetes by 51%.
Now, here's the thing. This is a classic fallacy in his understanding. One serving a day of processed meat increased diabetes risk by 51%. No, there's an association with people who eat processed meat with a 51% increased chance of diabetes. Now, you have to control for all the other things they're eating. You have to believe their self-report of what they're eating. And you have to understand that if you eat processed meat with, say, white bread, which many people do, not many people are just eating frickin' turkey slices. It's the full diet in the setting of the genetics of that particular patient, whether they have other exposures, what else they're doing, and what their family history and genetics are.
They were featuring recipes for red and processed meat. And on their recipes for healthy living, they had bacon-wrapped shrimp.
Guys, bacon-wrapped shrimp do not cause diabetes. As we mentioned, it's incredibly complex what causes diabetes, but it is not bacon-wrapped shrimp. And listen to me, if a diabetic wants to eat bacon-wrapped shrimp and it prevents them from eating white bread or white rice or some starchy carbohydrate, that is actually an upgrade in their diet, even though, yes, the bacon is a carcinogen, and over time it will increase your risk of certain types of cancer. True, but the risk of dying of diabetes may actually be higher if you're eating a crappy diabetogenic diet.
I take this for my heart arrhythmia, take this for pain, oxycodone for pain, and lorazepam for stress, cyclobenzaprine for muscle relaxer, also take Topamax and Prozac, and I also use a CPAP machine to help me breathe, and my asthma has been so bad this past year, I use it during the day as well.
This is 70% of my patients in the hospital with multiple chronic diseases, undoubtedly genetics and lifestyle related, and on multiple medications, including anxiolytics and narcotics, and then with sleep apnea due to obesity and to the medications, everything else. And this is our American state of healthcare today, and it is horrifying. Basically, processed anything is not a great idea. Eating whole meat, whole foods, right? Preferably naturally raised because of the nature of the kind of lipids that are produced when you feed a cow grass. And even that's conjecture. We just don't know.
If you lived near a swine spray field, not even the CAFO, but the waste disposal field, you were 3 times more likely to have a MRSA infection. you can't.
Guys, no one, and we're going to agree on this, no one is saying that factory farming, none of us are saying factory farming is good for human health or animal health or general morality of how we treat conscious creatures. So let's agree with these guys on that, that the way we treat animals in mass factory farms is absolutely unacceptable. Doesn't mean we shouldn't eat animals, doesn't mean we weren't evolved to eat animals, doesn't mean that we can't treat animals ethically and still eat the fuck out of them because they're delicious. And I want those K's of morphine, so you give me my cheese, bitch.